Hey guys, so welcome back to Indoor Reef. So today I'm going to do a deep dive into my Reef Aquarium lighting. As you regulars will know, in most of my videos I'm always asking, is there anything else you would like to hear about in more detail on this tank? And one of the requests I got fairly recently was from Daniel Davis to go into a little bit more detail about the lighting and specifically about how I made the lighting brackets. So this video is going to be a general deep dive into the lights, and I will make sure to cover that later. If there is anything else you would like to know about this tank, leave a comment and I will try and cover in future videos. Let's go. Okay, so let's start first with the basics. So I have got 5 lights on this tank. Just 1 second. 5 lights. It was only this morning when I was actually counting up the plugs that I actually realised I have 5 separate pieces of lighting. I normally think of this as just one lighting gantry, but... So I've got 3 AI aqua illumination lights on here. So we got 2 Hydra HDs and a AI Prime HD. The other 2 lights are LED bars. So these are by a company called Populargrow. You'll find them on AliExpress. These are actually a custom spectrum that I got made specifically to match the preset that I run on the aqua illumination lights. So the reason I went for aqua illumination lights for lighting this reef tank was on my original nano tank I'd been using the Prime HD, so it made sense to bring this over because I figured if I was to sell it, I wasn't going to get that much for it, and also it meant I could kind of build up the lighting gradually. So of course when you're in the cycling stage early on, you know, lighting isn't really that important, but as many of us will remember, we don't necessarily want to be sat looking at an unlit tank. So what I decided is I'd put a little bit of light on. Makes it a bit more interesting, but it's not really going to mega fuel that algae growth. So, and also I had to transfer some of my corals across quite quickly, but that's a story for another day anyway. We digress. So, I really liked the kind of app and everything for the AI lights. So I went ahead and got myself 2 of the Hydras. So the reason I went for the Hydras, it was about trying to get the spread across the tank. So this is the Red Sea Reefer 300XL, so it's a bit wider than the standard 250. And I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of light to cover the width of the tank, well, the depth, back to front. So that was why I went for the Hydras. And also I didn't want to be going crazy with having like separate, you know, power block for every separate light. Now, from what I understand from some of the BRS videos I've watched, the best way to do the lighting is actually to have individual pucks with the AI light. So if you had the AI Prime HDs, you can kind of really space these out and get an absolute, design the spread exactly how you want it. But this really isn't the cheapest way to do it. So basically the more pucks you buy in the individual lights, so like if you go for the bigger Hydras, you get better value for money. So this was kind of a compromise for me. So I bring the AI Prime HD over and then I'll buy 2 new Hydras, and you know what, this gave me a lot of spread. So I chose to mount the lights pretty high over the tank, and this was to try and get that even spread. Of course there's more light kind of intersecting in the middle here, if you think these ones are coming like this, like cone shapes. So I actually put the single light in the middle because in theory the others are intersecting there more, so I don't want it to become too bright right there. Now, because my aquascape is taller on this right hand side, then obviously the lighting is naturally going to be brighter up there. If there was a way with the AI lights to turn down the lighting in one of the lights but still have them all like paired together, then I would possibly have adjusted like one of the sides a little bit just to kind of get a balance, but that, as far as I'm aware, that isn't possible. If you know what it is, let me know, but I think you would have to run separate lighting schedules, so if you adjust one, you have to adjust them all separate. So that was kind of why I went with the aqua illumination lights. The idea with this tank, and you can tell by the whole design of the aquascape really, was that there were going to be quite a few SPS in here. Now I would call it a mixed reef tank because, you know, I do have quite a lot of zoas in here. I have got some LPS, but the reality is this tank is catered more towards SPS, and I think as the more it grows out, that'll probably become more and more SPS dominant. So when we start talking SPS, my opinion from what I've learned by observing other tanks, you know, watching videos online, is that spread of light is so important. So I wanted to just try and like totally envelop the corals in light as far as possible. So of course my aqua illumination lights here help with that, but then by adding these additional light bars on the side, that kind of just seals the deal. Just real quick, the reason that spread is so important with SPS is so that you don't get any shading. So yeah, you're basically trying to make sure that the coral is lit from as many sides as possible. At least that's what I aim for. So there were really two main reasons that I went for the Populargrow LED bars over Orphec, or what's the other ones? Is it like Reef Factory or Reef Bright? So the first was cost. These were just so much cheaper, especially when I wanted to customize the spectrum. I mean, I can't quite understand, to be honest, why some of the lights are as dear as they are, especially when you're talking about LED bars. But then the second thing was that you couldn't dim them, and this was really quite important to me. I wanted to be able to have that level of control over my LED bars. So yeah, I ended up going with these Populargrow ones. The experience was really good. The guys worked with me to get just kind of what I wanted. I can come on to a little bit more about those in a minute. So I think we're all quite familiar with the way the AI lights are programmed using the AI app, but for the Populargrow lights, you may not know. So the way this works is there's a couple of options you can buy the lights with. Well, I say a couple, there's actually three. I think you can buy the lights with, you know, always on 100%. That's the kind of simplest one. Then there is an app control, and I think it was based off Bluetooth, if I recall. And they give you these little modules that kind of just connect into the cable, and these allow for you to set the intensity of the light, and you can program a few different points over the day. Now the big catch with these is if the power goes off, it loses its memory completely. So I actually originally ordered these because I didn't realize this, and when I got them and set them up and was testing them and found this out, it was a bit like, oh man, you know. So I actually got in touch with the seller and explained, and they were really understanding. They offered to provide me a second type of timer, which is not controllable by a smart app. You program it on the physical device, and it has less kind of, it doesn't have any ramp on, ramp off type features. It's kind of on or off, but there are a few different times. You can have a few time periods during the day. And they were really good. They basically sent me them out at an absolute minimal cost. I can't remember what it was now, but it was really good value. They're basically giving me them at cost for the inconvenience of not realizing that was that there was going to be this like kind of issue when you turn the power off with the other ones. So yeah, generally I was really quite pleased with that level of customer service, especially for the price point. I think if that had been the level of service I'd got from someone like Orphec, I'd have probably been a bit disappointed because of, you know, how much more expensive they are. Okay, so moving on. So in terms of light schedule, so I actually run the AI Saxby settings. Now, the reason I chose this was not particularly scientific. So it really came down to when I was setting up my first Fluval Evo nano tank. So what I did there was I just took a few different P-sets, loaded them on, and just went through and picked the one that I liked the look of. So I'm not going to tell you it was super fancy about picking, you know, the spectrum that was best for the corals. This really was just a case of which one did I like the look of. And I really liked the spectrum on that one. And second, I wanted to pick something that I could see was really working on somebody else's tank. And when I looked at David Saxby's tank on the YouTube videos, I just thought, wow, that looks amazing. So yeah, that was why I went for that. And then when I moved across to this tank, I didn't see any reason to change it. I'd had pretty good experience. If you guys saw my older videos on that tank, you'll know that, you know, corals were going pretty well. I was generally really happy with it. So yeah, that was those ones. Now, when I went for the spectrum here on the LED bars, I basically matched it to the AI Saxby settings. So I went through and I worked out how many of each LEDs there were in the AI lights and the relative percentage strength of each of those lights. And I tried as best as possible to match it to the LED wavelengths that were available from Populargrow. And when in doubt, I went for a little bit more into the UV end because I was conscious there wasn't that much UV and blue in some of the lights. Anyway, that's what I did. I'll put the spectrum up on the screen. I can't remember all of the details of it right now, but I have been absolutely chuffed with this. I really like this kind of very white kind of look. So it looks white when you're kind of looking at the tank, like but there's actually a lot of UV and blue in there as well. It's just because of the amount of white, it doesn't have that kind of blue, like dark, like overexposed look. For me, this is more like what I feel the reef looks like when you're actually on a reef, with just that added extra bit of pop that you're getting from the, I guess it's probably the UV and the blues, but it doesn't look that blue when you look at it. Now, if you know the AI Saxby setting, at the beginning and end of the day, it does go much, much more blue. So that's kind of quite cool because it just gives, you know, that variation over the whole day, and it does slowly ramp up, slowly ramp down. So in terms of the length of time that my lights are on for, so I can't remember with the AI Saxby if these are the default kind of start and end time. I kind of shifted it left and right on the chart a little bit. So the AI lights come on at 9 AM and they go off at 10 PM. So if I'm working that out right, I believe that is a 13-hour photo period. So that might sound quite a lot, but when you think about the real reef, you know, the sun is up for quite a long period of time, and actually on this preset, it is really, really low for kind of the beginning and end because it's really got that ramp. Now the LED bars come on 1.5 hours later after the lights start to ramp up, so that's 10:30. They both come on at the same time, and then they go off at 6:30 in the evening. So that means in total those LED bars are on for 8 hours, and then there's 3.5 hours at the end of the day where they are off, and the kind of AIs are starting to ramp down. Okay, what else might you want to know? So I don't have any PAR readings to hand right now for this tank, because partially for two reasons. One, I always quite forget where I've put them. I need to probably put them in a spreadsheet on my computer with the rest of my reefing data so that I don't lose them. But what I can tell you is the PAR up on this top at 230, which is the peak of the lighting schedule, is around 500 or 600, maybe even a little bit higher. So it's fairly high, and I can't remember what's down the bottom, but it's not low. And I think This is why you might be able to see at the back there, some of the torches sometimes struggle a little bit. I think I've got to the point now where I can grow SPS anywhere in this tank, even quite light demanding ones. However, it comes at the detriment for the other corals. And I had gradually been increasing this over the last year, probably. I just kept bumping it up a little bit, you know, 5-10% at a time every so often. But I think I'm kind of reaching the point where I'm quite happy now. You know, the colours are really coming through, and you know, I'm getting really good growth. So I'm not sure I'll keep taking that any further. I mean, at the end of the day, it just keeps adding cost, and especially at the moment, that is not a good thing with how expensive electricity is in the UK. If some more detailed par readings would be something that you are interested in, then that would be possible for me to do. I do have a Senai par meter. So let's say if this video gets to, I don't know, 50 likes, then I will take more detailed par readings. So there you go. If you like this video, leave a like. It lets me know that you have enjoyed the content and you would like to see that that extra bit of info about the par at various spots in the tank. So if we get 50 likes, I will make that video. Okay, what else have we got? Oh yeah, the LED bars, they're actually running at 100%. So after all this time, when I said about wanting to be able to control them, although I did ramp them up steadily, I'm actually running them at 100% now. So yeah, I could have just used something like an Orphec with a smart plug, and I guess that's what Orphec would argue, but we are where we are. Okay, right, so yes, of course, back to Daniel's question. So how are the lights actually mounted and how did I make this? So they are actually mounted on this aluminium extrusion frame. So I didn't make this myself. I designed at least the concept and the requirements myself, but I contacted a local engineering firm. I knew them through some other work and just said, hey, you know, can you like kind of knock up a little lighting gantry for me for a reef tank? And I wrote down kind of all the spec of what I needed, the size, and yeah, and he was so good, to be honest. He sorted this out for me. I went into his workshop and we kind of tested it. So absolute, you know, so glad I did this. I wouldn't have come up with something quite as good if I'd had to do it myself. So he even thought about how to route the cables. So the aluminium extrusion has been designed so that, you know, we could run the cables. So I think up here at the top, the cables are actually running in the top and are concealed. So these here, you can see the cables are concealed in the slots. So I do actually have some cover I could put on there, but I've just never bothered because you can't see it anyway. It's a smooth finish on the top and front because there's no slots needed there, and it just makes it look a little bit better from the front. Now, because I added the LED bars later, these weren't actually part of the original design, so I ended up just, it's probably not done as well as if I'd got the guy to do it originally, but I just picked these up at the DIY store and worked out if I got 2 of these L brackets, it kind of fit quite nicely with the little brackets that come for mounting the LED bar. Yeah, when I got the lighting gantry, these parts were all kind of like cut specifically to fit. So you can see I've got a couple of different mounting options there. So the idea was I could mount them directly to the bar underneath, or I could use these L brackets. Now I prefer the L brackets because you can adjust them in and out without having to actually unattach the light here. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love these lights. You're probably not going to be able to see this very here now. Well, now it's on the tank, but I can completely adjust the height of the lighting gantry. The way it's actually bolted to the inside, you might be able to see this. I did have to drill the back cabinet, and guys, measure twice. I ended up drilling one of the holes in the wrong place, but anyway, thankfully it's kind of behind the sump so you don't see it. But yeah, he came up with this kind of system where even when it's there now, behind the wall, I can just reach down the back and I could adjust the height. Now, I'm quite happy with the height now, and I don't think I'm going to be adjusting that regularly. But it's a really nice option to have, especially if I was to switch to different lights in the future. Just to kind of show you actually the kind of quality that the guy who sorted this gantry out for me went to. This is actually machined out, and it hides the connection through into here, so that it's you know, it's visibly really nice. Now to lift that out, there's even a little hole that you can just put a little screw in and just lift it out. So there was a lot of thought and attention to detail went into this. Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely made up with this light gantry. I did wonder whether maybe I should have had multiple supports, but you know, I mean, it was designed originally without these bits, but you know, it's pretty all right. At the back, just to make sure I don't put too much pressure on the tank, I have a little bit of cork in there, so it does lean forwards a tiny bit. I have these on the back of here. I have these like little stick-on cable tie restraints. Now they often drop off. I probably need to stick them on a bit better. I did consider tidying it up before this video, but I just thought, you know, I'll show you as it is. On the back here, I 3D printed these little cable clamps, which just fit into the aluminium profile slot. I could probably do something similar on here because there's also a slot as well. Our future project. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, you know, please leave a like. It lets me know. It lets me know you're enjoying this. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe. If there's something you want to know about on this tank that I haven't talked about yet, leave a comment and I'll do another video just like this, you know, if I can accommodate. So until next time on Indoor Reef, keep it stable, keep it fun, and keep reefing.